customer-centric. That's how Suzuki describes its new Swift. It says that while legislation might be pushing manufacturers to build EVs and tightening profit margins make it more and more difficult for brands to build small cars, that doesn't mean that customers don't want them. Quite the opposite, in fact. Suzuki says that it's not that demand for super minis has dried up, it's that supply is dwindling. That's why super minis' share of the new car market is shrinking. And so while household names such as the Ford Fiesta and the Nissan Micra and the Volkswagen Up are no longer available, Suzuki is adamant that customers do still want small internal combustion engine super minis, and that's why it's launched this, the new for 2024 Swift. In this CarGurus UK review, we're going to dive into the details of this neat new super mini, starting with a quick history lesson. The Swift, you see, has been around for over 40 years, during which time 9 million have been sold globally. First launched in 1983, the original had a 6-year run before being replaced with a successor that would then remain on sale for 14 years, by which point it looked pretty dated. The modern-day Swift arrived in 2005, and that car really set the template for many Suzukis that followed, in that it was lightweight, it had neat design, and it was really quite good fun to drive, particularly the Swift Sport model. That was followed by 2 further generations of Swift, which continued this ethos of being light, neat design, and better to drive than you might have imagined. Which brings us to this latest model. It sits on the same platform as the outgoing Swift and has pretty much the same dimensions at just under 3.9 metres long and just over 1.7 metres wide. There are also elements of the design, particularly at the back of the car, that do look extremely familiar. But at the front, the styling is significantly more modern and complete with standard LED headlights, while moving to the side of the car, the use of blacked out pillars helps to give the floating roofline effect that's reminiscent of a modern Mini. Now, given it's the same size on the outside as the previous Swift and rides on the same platform, it's not hugely surprising to learn that this new Swift is similarly practical, which is to say it's not quite as big as cars like the Corsa or the Peugeot 208, but it's really not bad. So the boot is 265 litres, which is a useful size, and you can fit 4 adults in here, so getting 2 in the back is pretty easy. You can get 3 in at a push. So all in all, it's going to be practical enough for most super mini buyers. Now, where it has really improved, when you do notice it, is in the front here. In the outgoing Swift, the interior looked okay, but felt a bit like a child's toy in its build quality. This one still has a lot of hard plastics, but the combination of the two-tone design and some interesting mouldings really helped to lift things. It's also really well equipped as standard, so all models, for example, are dripping in active safety equipment. They get adaptive cruise control, lane assist, rear cross traffic alert, blind spot warning, all of that stuff is completely standard. And then beyond that, there are only 2 trims to know about. They're called Motion and Ultra. Even the Motion, the entry-level model, has loads of equipment. So things like heated seats and aircon, obviously, rear parking sensors, reversing camera, that's all completely standard. And both Motion and Ultra get this same 9-inch infotainment system. This is new for the new Swift. And I mean, it's no BMW iDrive in terms of features and graphics, but it's pretty good. The graphics are a little bit basic, and there's a bit of a lag between pressing a button and something happening. But to be honest, you get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard, so once you're plugged into one of those, you kind of forget about the rest of it. Upgrading to an Ultra model adds climate control with an extra vent for rear passengers, plus power folding mirrors and a polished finish to the 16-inch wheels. The other thing to know about the model range is that you can have your Swift with either a CVT automatic gearbox or a 5-speed manual. I've not tried the CVT yet, but I will say this manual is a delight. And unusually in the super mini sector, Suzuki continues to offer the option of upgrading from front-wheel drive to all-wheel drive. So you can have an all-wheel drive Swift. And that, aside from which paint colour you choose, is about it as far as the range goes, because every Swift uses the same engine. That engine is a new 1.2 litre 3-cylinder petrol unit with no turbos and a power output of 81 horsepower. The Swift then is not a fast car. 0 to 62 miles per hour takes 12.5 seconds. But you know what? Driving this car, there aren't that many occasions when you feel like it's lacking in grunt, and there are a couple of reasons for that. The first is all Swifts are mild hybrid, and what that does is it has a battery which recuperates some energy when you're off the accelerator and braking, and then it can redeploy that energy at low revs to give you a little bit of extra shove. And that really does hide a lot of what could be quite a lethargic edge to the performance. So that's 1500 RPM, foot down in fourth. And actually it's picking up quite nicely. The other thing that really helps the Swift is it is light. So all models weigh, well, the entry-level model weighs less than 950 kilos. All models weigh less than 1100 kilos. And so that really has a huge effect on the way the Swift drives. You also get this really slick 5-speed manual gearbox, only 5 speeds rather than 6, but do you know what? Second gear, foot to the floor, peak torque of, I think, 83 pound-foot at 4,500 RPM. It feels fine in terms of performance. It's really quite good fun, and that 3-cylinder engine, it sounds quite solid, a bit like the Fiesta used to, like a nice thrum, but it doesn't sound weedy. It sounds, yeah, it's that cliche, isn't it? Half a 911 engine. It's really quite a good little fun car in terms of how it performs. The mild hybrid also contributes to outstanding fuel economy, with manual versions of the Swift returning 64 miles per gallon in WLTP tests, as well as 99 grams per kilometre of CO2. So in real world driving, this thing is easily topping 50 miles per gallon. It's on 53.5 at the moment, and that's not being driven particularly gently. So this is going to be a very cheap car to run. But do you know what? Even more impressive than that is just how much fun it is. The ride and handling, I don't think we're quite at the levels that the Fiesta used to be at, but it's not ever so far off. So the low speed ride is perhaps going to be a little bit firm for some, but it pays off once you're on faster roads because the body control is excellent. It does lean through corners, but not excessively. And the steering has more weight than the previous Swift, but it's super direct. It's really well weighted actually, and it just makes this car a real hoot to drive. It's really good fun. It's got loads of grip, really good front end. It's like the old Swift, that was fun to drive as well. This just takes it to another level. It's really enjoyable. Yeah. So there is an awful lot to admire about this new Swift. However, the price might not be one of them. There was a time when the Swift was in the mix with the cheapest cars on sale in the UK, but not anymore. The range now starts at just under £18,700. And what that means is that you can buy entry-level versions of cars like the Citroën C3 or the Renault Clio for less than you can buy an entry-level Swift. And those cars are also slightly bigger. They don't have as much equipment as standard, and they don't have as good a drivetrain in their entry-level models, but they are bigger. And what that means is that the Swift is perhaps not the default no-brainer choice that it potentially could be. Don't get me wrong, I think that in a world where cars seem to be getting bigger and heavier and more complicated all the time, it is admirable that Suzuki is sticking with building something that is small and lightweight and simple. I think the car is all the better for it. And I can see that for the equipment that you get, it does represent good value. However, I just wonder if there is space for Suzuki to offer a model that does away with some of the features such as keyless entry and standard sat-nav and heated seats, and maybe some of the active safety systems too. And if it could do that and bring it in at close to £17,000, maybe 17.5, I think it would really help make the Swift appeal to an even broader audience. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely think that this is the right car at the right time. I'm just not sure it's in the right trim. Would you consider a new Suzuki Swift as your next car? Let us know, and remember to check out a wide range of used Suzuki Swifts for sale, including lots of approved used models over at cargurus.co.uk.